public figure who is right there fighting to maintain liberty in the state of Connecticut. I only know of one holding office right now, I think. But anyway, Rob Sampson is the star of the lot. Hello there, Rob.
How you doing, Todd?
Am I interrupting anything?
No, just a number of phone calls that are coming in on my end from very, very concerned constituents.
And what are they concerned about?
They're concerned mostly about the actions of the governor over the last several days. Some are concerned, of course, about the virus itself. But most of the calls I've gotten in the last half an hour, 45 minutes have been in reaction to the governor's press conference.
Okay, can you put that in context for us then? What did the governor do? And how do you feel about it? How do your constituents feel about it?
Well, that's a great question, Todd, because I was left with far more questions than answers after listening to the governor's press conference. Essentially what he said is he's going to follow the direction of the state of New York. And as of Sunday night at 8 p.m., he's going to demand that what he deems non-essential businesses be closed. But I don't know what that means.
Well, I was wondering the same thing. To the person who owns and operates it, every business is essential.
That is correct. The state of New York has issued a list of what they consider to be essential and non-essential businesses, and the rumor that I'm getting is that our list will be very similar. And I don't want to put anyone in a panic. The list is rather extensive. But at the same time, the governor is leaving us with lots and lots of questions. And if anyone is generating panic, it is a man who can come before the state of Connecticut and tell us that he is going to indiscriminately choose which businesses get to stay open and which ones get to close. There is no end date to when this happens, just that we know that it's going to begin at Sunday night. The executive order is not even available yet, so we cannot even read it and discover what it means. My first question, Todd, is who does this apply to? Does this apply to the employees of these businesses? Does that mean that if you're a non-essential employee, you're going to be stopped traveling on the road to be asked where you're going and whether or not you're an essential part of your business? I mean, I don't want to raise a red flag of tremendous concern in the public. I want people to stay calm. But the governor is leaving us with so many questions that I think it's very hard for people to be calm because they have no idea what his intentions are.
Well, I think that's the intention, is to make his intentions, leave them unknown. Because if you look at what they've done thus far, it's been this very incremental, step-by-step, bit-by-bit movement towards being in a condition of martial law or what do they call it when you shut yourself in thing. You know, that it's always been the end game, to take total control of the state and to have everybody off the streets not going to work, to shut down the economy and to shut down normal activity as much as possible. And they're doing that very quickly, really, but they're doing it bit by bit so that people don't realize what the end game is. So I think what you're describing is exactly the intention. So you declare something, but you don't say anything like martial law. Wait, he called it something silly. What was that name he made up?
He called it "Stay Safe, Stay Home."
Like it's a big, cheery thing for all of us.
Yeah, but he also referred to it as forced social distancing. And anytime the governor mentioned, or the government, regardless of whether it's our governor, our president, or any elected official, starts using the word force, that really makes my hackles go up. Forced social distancing to me means that the government is going to start to control the movement of its citizens, and that is something that I will never go for in a free America.
Forced social distancing. Good pickup, Rob.
It's also inexplicable. The president of the United States held a press conference this morning and more or less reiterated that he is on a 15-day timeline. And we're a few days into that. Why is this action by the governor of Connecticut necessary here today? And of course, it's not today. It's Sunday at 8 p.m. and the details will be given to the public sometime in between. So we have a state filled with people that are already gravely concerned about the impact of a virus because of the media onslaught that it won't stop on the subject. They are trying to do their best to prepare themselves for this. And you know what's so funny is the governor also mentioned that the public is doing such a tremendous job voluntarily with the social distancing. Now, if that's the case, then why do we need an action for forced social distancing?
Well, what do you think? Do you have an answer for that question? A hypothetical answer, because we haven't gotten one concretely?
Todd, I have been trying since this began to stay in my lane, which is, as a state legislator, my job is to debate and vote on public policy. In the case of a crisis or an emergency, we have a procedure. I don't know if the procedure is exactly what I agree with, but the procedure essentially is that we hand the reins of our state government over to the executive branch. And they essentially have all decision-making power with very little input or anything from any of the other branches of government. Mm-hmm. The extent to I know what's going on is what is being delivered to the public. I might have a little more insight because there are daily briefings that the governor has with the legislative leaders, and I hear that information from my leader, Senator Fasano. But that's all I'm getting.
All right, we're talking to State Senator Rob Sampson. He's a Republican from Wolcott. 860-522-9842. Let's finish up our chat with Senator Rob Sampson. So, Rob, what exactly are the emergency powers of the governor? Does he actually have the authority to do what he's doing, or do people just fall in line because that's their nature?
I have asked the question whether or not the forced mandatory closings of business is a lawful action or not, and I don't have an answer. And Todd, I want to just make something clear to your listeners, and that is that the legislators that are reporting this information throughout the state, a lot of them are taking a different tact at doing it. I've tried to do my job as specifically as I possibly can, which is my job at this point, now that the power of running the state government during this crisis has been transferred to the governor. My job and my role really is to just convey the information that he comes up with to my constituents. But I also represent my constituents. And when they have questions and concerns, as they have had since the beginning of this, particularly with the original business closings, the first thing that I did was I wrote a letter along with my colleague, Representative Gail Master-Francesco, to the governor asking, okay, so you've made this decision. It seemed very arbitrary to me to pick and choose to close down bars and bowling alleys, but leave hair salons open. So, of course, he follows that up a couple days later by closing hair salons. But the question is, how is he making these decisions, and what do we tell these people are going to happen with their businesses? And is this really necessary as part of the effort to stop the spread of the virus if people are actually doing things voluntarily that make a lot of sense? And I still don't have any answers for those questions. So today's press conference is like quadrupling down on that. And it's very hard for me to stay in my lane now because I know that I have very upset constituents who want answers and deserve answers from their government about why this is happening. This is America, Todd. You know this as well as any other person that I know in this world, that this is a free country and that people should be making their own decisions. The government is responsible to them. You know, when the governor says that we're closing our customer-facing businesses, they're not his customer-facing businesses. They're the constituents that he and I represent businesses, and they should make the choices. People deserve to have the information so they can make their own choice about risk they're going to face. Yes, the government has a role in a crisis. I don't know if this has reached that level or not, and like I said, I will leave it to the people in charge to make that determination. But when they do, they have to give the proper information to their constituents. They cannot leave them hanging.
So your argument is not necessarily with anything the governor has done other than that he is doing it without explaining.
That's correct. I can't say whether or not the decision-making that's happening on a national level or a state level is truly necessary. Those gentlemen are privy to information that I am not. They are talking to the experts as far as the doctors, scientists, and people that are advising them about the civil preparedness that's required. I'm just a real estate agent who represents my constituents. And when they come to me to ask questions, I ask those people what the questions are. They deserve to give me, my constituents deserve answers, and I deserve the answers to give them.
Well, you referred earlier to your lane and staying in your lane. To me, this is your lane. This is what you are supposed to do, is be out there fighting to keep the government honest, just like it's our job as citizens to be fighting to keep government honest. But you're in a better situation to do it because you're an insider and you've got some insight into the way decisions are made and how power works. And it seems to me I'd like to have you address this. We're talking to State Senator Rob Sampson. because of your liberty-based perspective as a Republican, and you articulate it, I think, for the rest of the state and for the rest of the government in a way that drives them crazy. So I'd like you to drive them a little crazier. If you were in this kind of role and you had presented to you a crisis, if we assume the worst case scenario is true, which I do now, I think they're operating out of fear, and they are scared to death of what is going to happen if they can't stop the fast spread of this disease, and the image is haunting them in their imaginations of lines at the ICU. So imagine yourself in that situation and you're a governor. What would you do?
Well, I can certainly sympathize with that position, which is why I spoke about staying in my lane, that I don't have the information to make any better decisions that they are. But if I was going to make such a dramatic and drastic decision that affected the lives of every citizen in this state, then I would darn sure do it by providing accurate, detailed information. Not, I'll get back to you in a couple of days with when this is going to end.
Yes, but you know exactly, this is exactly how power works. Whatever it can get away with, it goes 1,000 miles beyond that line. And it pushes for more all the time. So if there is such a thing as emergency powers, if there is the ability for the governor to suddenly claim that he can make all decisions and decide which businesses are open or closed, then he's going to exercise that with as little regard for notions of liberty and freedom as possible.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think that the government's obligations to its citizens, who are the bosses in our society, the people are the ones that decide. And I believe that people are smart enough, given the proper information, to make their own decisions about whether or not.
Well, you are correct, Rob. But in practice, how often do you see that be the attitude of those in power?
Well, it's far too rare, and I'm actually surprised we are at this stage in this crisis in this country, in this state right now. I don't know that it's reached that level. Maybe it has. Maybe the governor is privy to information that I do not have. But I am genuinely concerned about the loss of freedom and the drastic results that are going to happen as a result of the businesses being shut down. That is another type of crisis that is going to be inevitable if, even for a short period of time, you shut down businesses across the state for 1 or 2 weeks. The spiraling out of control of our economy is going to happen. There's no question about it. A lot of people live paycheck to paycheck, and when those paychecks are not coming and there is no solution for how those people are going to be able to afford to buy groceries or anything else, I don't know what the governor's plan is. And what scares me, based on the press conference and his inability to answer my previous guest questions, is that I don't think he knows.
Well, the outcome of this, it seems to me, is the scariest part, scarier than the virus to me, and that is everything they're proposing is a big government socialist solution to get us through the crisis, and I don't see who's going to roll those things back.
Right. I totally agree, Todd. And I am walking a very fine line because I want to do a bunch of things. I want to make sure that the people that I represent are not in a state of panic. I am trying to reassure them that whatever decisions are being made for legitimate purposes. And I want to remind them that I am on watch to make sure that whatever does happen, I'm going to tell them honestly, and I'm going to come out publicly and let people know how I feel about it. And that's all I can do at this point. I wish I was in a position that I had more influence about what decisions the governor is making and more information to know what the proper choices are. And I think he should be looking for that help from the people around him.
Well, I don't know what to tell you about that. But I do know we need you to be outspoken and aggressive in standing up for the transgressions that you know are going on, i.e. not proper explanations, but more importantly, on the nature of the solutions that are being forced upon us. State Senator Rob Sampson, thank you, sir. Always good to talk with you.
Thank you, Todd.
There is a great voice in state government. State Senator Rob Sampson. Time for us to get